Hello all and welcome back. Apologies, this is going to be a Wednesday at Dobbs episode. We were viewing a couple of properties yesterday, so sorry for being a day late with this. Thank you as ever everyone for continuing to get in touch, sharing your thoughts and opinions. The best place to do so, comment section below. If you've got a longer story, maybe with some pictures, you can email hi@tuesdayatdobbs.com. I know I say it every week, but I really appreciate all of you getting in touch, and I'm so sorry I don't reply to all of the emails, all of the comments, but I go through all of them, so please do keep them coming. They're instrumental in me making these weekly episodes. Let's begin this week. Paulson Creative. This is a video I filmed that actually will come out in 2 days' time on the Freddie Dobbs channel, not this podcast channel. But I wanted to quickly jump in because I saw a really impressive looking bike from Moto Morini, the proud Italian brand. They've got a whole suite at Paulson Creative. If you're in the Essex area, go and check them out. Very, very cool place. But I was really impressed with the Moto Morini Xcape. This is their mid-sized adventure bike, and it offers a very compelling package at the price. Before I get into the exact bike and the price and the specs, I'll give you an overview about this proud Italian brand and what it's gone through to get to this point where we are now. Moto Morini, founded in 1937, initially producing three-wheelers. Then in 1946, they produced their first motorbikes. They've had Grand Prix race wins and triumphs throughout racing over a number of decades. Then in the 1980s, everything went completely wrong, a bit like the British motorcycle industry. Just a complete nightmare from the 1980s onwards, really. 1987, Moto Morini was sold to Cagiva, and on the Morini website, this is what it states. I mean, this is the definition of turbulence. Factory was sold in 1993, then Morini name was sold in 1996, just the name. Then in 2005, they had an all-new relaunch. Then in 2007, the Morini family regained complete control of the company. God, this sounds like a lot of British brands over the years. Then in 2011, the company was sold to two Italian entrepreneurs. This all sounds brilliant, but clearly that failed as well, because in 2018, Moto Morini was sold to the Zhongneng Group, a Chinese group, and it's been with them for the past 7 years. So this is that classic thing of hugely powerful Chinese companies buying up the European biking brands and really resurrecting these brands. That's exactly what's happened here. So the Xcape specifically, now of course under Chinese ownership, and to the best of my knowledge, made in China, these bikes. In fact, they must do at this price point, so not the best of my knowledge. These will be made in China. 650cc engine, 213 kilos dry weight, so you're probably looking at 233 kilo wet weight, 60 horsepower, and 5,799 pounds. Everything up until that point, up until the price, looks nothing remarkable there. Even the weight is actually pretty high, but the horsepower is nice and solid. But you combine all of that with the really good looks. This is a unique looking adventure bike. It's got something about it, and in the flesh, it's a very good looking bike. And at 5,800 pounds for a brand new 650cc adventure bike, that is something that made my head turn when I arrived. If you look at it compared to, for example, the Triumph Tiger, 660cc, 8,995 pounds, 81 horsepower. So it's the exact same engine size, but it is near enough. Well, in fact, it's 3,200 pounds more. So it's a huge amount more. It's 207 kilo wet weight, so significantly lighter with a significant amount more horsepower. But I would say the Moto Morini is a better looking bike, although I have no doubt at all that Triumph will be a better bike, full stop. It's just more dynamic, more powerful. Take a look at the Himalayan then. Almost exactly the same price. The Himalayan's £49 cheaper than the Moto Morini. 450cc engine with 40 horsepower, so way down on power, the Himalayan, but at the same price point as the Moto Morini. However, I would class the Himalayan still as quite a heavy bike, but even this is 196 kilo wet weight. So the Xcape is good value even when compared to the Himalayan. I wonder how these are going to do long term, because definitely as a package there, that really does look quite appealing. I'll move on now. Crazy bike prices, or simply market interest dictating prices. This comes in from Ogassi. Other than being a Kawasaki fanboy, I'm not sure why anyone would buy the Kawasaki W650 for over £3,000 over something like, for example, an almost new BSA Gold Star 650. The BSA will beat it in every way. Yeah, the W650 are nice bikes and it's a Kawasaki, but sometimes common sense has to step in. Remember that. And this comes in as a direct reply from the Podbay Dorsal. This is a reply to the earlier comment. I didn't even consider the BSA when I was getting my Kawasaki W650. I'll have to disagree with you on that. My personal opinion is the new BSA Gold Star is a little bit of a miss. It certainly isn't better on paper than the Kawasaki, and in my opinion, not in the flesh either. I went with the W, but also considered the likes of the Royal Enfield Interceptor, the Triumph T100, but not the Gold Star. Still, I hope the Gold Star sells well, as I don't want the company to go bust again. What's important when looking for a used bike? How on earth do you even begin to value a used bike? What dictates how valuable something is on the used market? Because if you look from a common sense point of view, very little on the used market with motorbikes makes any real sense. A lot of the time you can't justify and try and explain the market value of something. It's simply how many people want that thing, how desirable it is to people. And desirability and quality of a product, they do not go hand in hand. It doesn't need to make any logical sense. I've got a few bikes here that I want to show you that I think nicely demonstrate how all over the place is the used bike market, and some of you may find this fascinating, comparing your country's residuals for used bikes compared to the UK's. The reason I found this especially interesting, certainly in the UK, the retro segment of motorbikes has been booming for about 5 to 6 years, something like that. And what that means is for the used market, we now have a really healthy market of these used retros coming along. Everything from the Triumph Bonneville T120, the BMW RnineT, the Gold Stars, and importantly, the thing that's really changed it all of these Royal Enfields now. Just the used market, the classifieds are now full of 4-5-year-old retros from a number of different brands, and this hasn't really ever happened before up until the last 5 years. And things are changing now in the used market because of this sudden influx of these desirable retro bikes. There is a lot of competition now. I'll start off here. Kawasaki W650 from last week, perfect place to start. Take a look, 2001 model, 50,000 miles on the clock, £3,000. That, if you think level-headedly, that's a lot of money for a 24-year-old motorbike with 50,000 miles on the clock. When you compare, for near enough the same price, £800 more, you can get a 2-year-old BSA Gold Star. Just £800 separates. They've got the same size engine, roughly the same horsepower, but one is so new it's still got its manufacturer's warranty. I'll do a couple more here. I mean, this is even crazier. This is a 4-year-old Royal Enfield Interceptors. These are really well-proven bikes now. They're well made, the engines are reliable, there are no horror stories here. This is a well-proven engine, and it comes in at £2,800. So this bike is £200 cheaper than a 24-year-old Kawasaki W800 with 33,000 miles more on the clock. A couple more here. This is really appealing now, hugely so. Triumph Street Twins. 8-year-old model now, and these are well under £4,000. You see what the Royal Enfields are doing here to the classifieds, pushing down all of the prices, and I mean this in the best possible sense. I'll do a final comparison here. I want to show you the In fact, I'll do 2 more. I've enjoyed this so much. Take a look at this old air-cooled Triumph Bonneville 790 from 2002. 23-year-old Bonneville, £3,300. That's just £400 less than this Triumph Street Twin. They're nearly the exact same price, although about 15 years separates these 2 bikes. And that's it, just me doing a bit of relaxing searching online and comparing prices, but trying to figure this out from a common sense point of view doesn't work at all. Let's move on. Written off by rats. This must have happened to more people than just Andy, but take a listen to this almost heartbreaking story. Freddie, searching the classifieds for a Honda VFR, I found a mint, low mileage Gen 5 2001 Honda VFR in blue. I owned it for a couple of years and did a couple of Euro trips over to Assen for the Moto GP. And I loved it. Perfect bike. Even used to scare a few sports bike riders on track with it. At around 2019, my back started causing me some real issues and the bike got less use than I would have liked. And then came the madness of lockdown with COVID, which is when she went into storage. Here's where the nightmare starts. Feeling that my biking days may be over, I almost forgot about it, tucked away out of sight and out of mind. Almost. Anyway, it was early 2023 when I got the urge to get the bike out and hear that high-level carbon exhaust rumble once again. On reaching the lockup where it was stored, I opened the doors and saw what can only be described as a horror scene. Rats. They had decided that the beautiful VFR in blue was not only the best colour, but also a snug little living quarters. And while living rent-free inside the fairings, they'd chewed every single wire, pipe and fitting on the bike, and to add insult to injury, had stuffed it full of everything from KFC chicken bones to chewed up plastic bags. Pee and poop in every possible gap. The finish of all of the engine casings, the forks, the wheels, everything was corroded from their pee. I've enclosed a few photos and it's hard to imagine what they've done. The bike was not insured. As it was sawned, it was taken off the road and tucked up safe and sound. Or so I thought at least. Just to return to find it, in essence, a write-off. It can't be ridden anymore. It's not economical to fix the bike. So needless to say, there was some swearing done on that day. So that was it. My biking days were done and dusted as I couldn't afford to replace it at the time. But the next couple of years passed and I still had that interest in motorbikes. About 2 months ago, up on my YouTube feed pops a chap bimbling around France on a Bonneville, luggage on the back, in no apparent rush to get it anywhere, just taking it all in. So curiosity took hold and I started looking about for bikes for sale. Just looking, of course, no more than that. Well, what do you know? I found a 1,500-mile 2011 Triumph Bonneville SE in what seemed to be a fair price. Just 12 hours later and it was on the back of my van on the way home to Portsmouth. I've already added a few mods and serviced it with new tyres and about 1,000 miles racked up already. Absolutely loving it, and my back is no longer complaining. Andy, I'm glad that's got a happy ending and delighted you found the channel of my trip down to Sardinia. But I don't know what I'd do in that situation. Your bike's a write-off. You know, once rats have gnawed through all of the wiring, you need a complete new wiring loom. And once they've peed all over the engine casings and everywhere, you're never going to be able to get that back to a standard where it's economically viable. So you've got the visual issues where your bike will never look the way it used to look before unless you spend a huge amount of money on it. And you've got the issues, you can't even ride it without doing a complete, and this is minimum, wiring loom replacement, total replacement. I'd love to hear from any of you. What is the most brutally extreme write-off of a bike that you've ever had from pests, from rats, from mice, things like that? Andy, thank you for sharing that. Delighted you found the Bonneville. On now, bike shopping. I love stuff like this. This comes in from Matt. Freddie, I passed my motorbike test in 2009 after a friend of mine took me out on their Honda CBR1300F, and that gave me the buzz. I subsequently bought that CBR off my friend and I ran it for a couple of years just as a fun weekend bike. A couple of years later, I was diagnosed with multiple sclerosis, so I decided to sell the bike and I haven't ridden since. I'm now in my early 40s, I suffer fatigue and pain in my right leg, but apart from that, I'm dealing with my condition well. Matt, I'm delighted to hear that. Now with my wife, or now that my wife wants to do her CBT, that's the basic bike test, and get a Cruiser 125, brackets, she's a huge Sons of Anarchy fan, I also want to start riding again. I need help though, in deciding which bike I should get for myself. I consider myself a new rider again, purely due to the length of time I've been away from bikes. I will be riding with my wife and also friends with bigger bikes. I'm not interested in huge speed. I love the modern classics. So here's my short list of bikes. Triumph Bonneville 865, BMW RnineT, Honda CB1300, Royal Enfield Shotgun 650, and a Harley Davidson Sportster 883 iron. What would you suggest to me, please, Matt? Matt, there's a bike that immediately jumped out here. Let me go through the list. Triumph Bonneville 865. Yes, of course, I know it well. I have it. Great bike, ultra reliable, low seat height, so good for your leg as well. This will be a very nice bike to get back on. And these are cheap now. £3,000 will get you one of these. Highly recommended. BMW RnineT, no. Forget it for what you want. You're not interested in huge speeds, and these are so dynamic and relatively so quick. They're almost a super naked, but in retro form. They're amazing bikes, but not for what you're looking for, I think. Honda CB1300, no. Big bikes, very heavy, and the fact that you sometimes get pain in your right leg and you're coming back to biking, these are gigantic beasts, and I think those two things combined means you don't need to consider that because there's other great stuff. Royal Enfield Shotgun 650, yeah, this is a good shout. This should be in the running. A Harley Davidson Sportster 883 iron. Matt, this is the bike for you. It has to be this. The reason being, low seat height, so you're not going to have any of the leg pains from maneuvering the bike and things like that. They hold the value ridiculously well. They look excellent. With that 883 engine, they're going to be reliable, and these are not quick bikes, but you're going to be able to keep up with traffic. But the biggest reason here, you want to ride with your wife, and your wife is a massive Sons of Anarchy fan. So getting to have a Harley Davidson with that link there, I just think both of you will be able to enjoy riding this bike, having this bike parked up, just soaking in Harley Davidson ownership. And you have to do it, you're a Sons of Anarchy fan. Biking is about passion and enjoyment. The dream has to be getting a Harley Davidson if you're big fans of that amazing show, just like I am as well. In fact, that's the show that got me into biking, Sons of Anarchy. So I wanted a Harley Davidson as well. I can't believe I've never owned one, but it was that exact show that made me freak out about biking. I was watching it at the exact time I took my motorbike test. That's how excited I was from the show. So I get it. You have to get the Harley Davidson, and I have found one for you. You want an 883 iron. About 4.2 to 5k is about the market price for one of these, but I would go for this one. It's insane how well they hold the value. And what I was saying earlier, it doesn't make common sense. It's just what people want. The market dictates the price. It's not about the quality. And these should not be £5 but they are because everyone wants them. So 2016 Harley Davidson Sportster 883. Good condition, no rust, 12 months MOT, 12,000 miles on the clock, fully serviced by the owner with synthetic oil, starts and rides perfectly, sounds bloody awesome. Look, this is someone who's loved the bike, £4,950 or nearest offer, and it looks fairly standard for one of these. A lot of these have been modified. That is the exact bike I'd go for. Listed 2 days ago. Look, maybe you could get £200 off that. Matt, let me know if you get it. Send me pics if you do. Bike of the week. God, I've done a big segment on this. I've just flicked through. This is almost a quarter of the whole podcast. Bike of the week. The greatest sports tourer of all time. I'll put a question mark on that. That's not a statement. This comes in all the way from Australia, Frank. Freddie, there is no better and cheaper nor more comfortable way to cover miles more quickly and bring a smile to your face than a big bore sports tourer. It's winter here in Melbourne. It's cold, it's wet, so time to get busy with maintenance and get ready for spring and summer. I picked up this 1300 cc sports tourer. Can you guess? Yamaha FJR1300, the mighty 1300. I picked it up today to go along with my Yamaha Diversion and Honda Blackbird. What a trio. As a bit of a tidy up project. The Aussie equivalent, I got this bike for £1,700, and it bought me an immensely comfortable bike with 145 horsepower, great handling, ABS, fully integrated luggage, electric screen, drive shaft, cruise control, you name it, it's got it. Riding 2 hours home from in a chilly 10 degrees centigrade was no problem at all. And I was warm behind that fairing and screen without needing to wear cold weather gear. Yeah, that's the joy about these big mile munchers. I can certainly see why these bikes were so popular with police and emergency services fleets around the world. I don't see this category becoming as collectible as, for example, retro cafe races and sports bikes, but they do offer a unique riding experience and long distance capability. Frank, Australia. Frank, I wanted to read this out because over this past week, I think I've had 4 different people messaging me about the FJR, saying it's just the ultimate bomb-proof bike. And I had someone commenting saying they've got an FJR 1300 with 125,000 miles on the clock, and it's still going like clockwork. So this is as well deserving a bike of the week that you could possibly imagine. Let's take a look at it. Yamaha FJR 1300, often referred to online. You can take your pick of which reviews you look at. They're all the same. Bomb-proof, unbreakable motorbikes with unquestionable reliability. That's a constant wherever you decide to look for reviews. Bennett say this, I really like this, to sum up the FJR 1300. If success is measured by longevity, then Yamaha's FJR 1300, it should be the greatest touring motorcycle there has ever been. The current model might have evolved through different suspension. Remember this is really useful if you're looking one. Through different suspension, improved brakes, electronics, detailing, and the addition of an extra gear. But the basic engine, chassis and riding dynamics are pretty much the exact same from 2001 all the way through from the beginning and all the way through till the very end in about 2021. So the timeline of this bike, launched in 2001. In North America, they got it in 2002. At the time when it came out, around the first 2 years, this was winning many sports touring awards, magazine tests. This was almost always right at the very top of the tree. Important dates. So launched in 2001, 2002. 2006 saw the Generation 2 arrive, and that's when ABS came along. So that's the first big change. Then in 2013, that's when Generation 3 came. So again, you've got the ABS there, and you've got things like new fairings and other bits and pieces. And then finally, 2021, the bike was killed off. So Generation 1 was 2001 to 2005. But the really important thing here is the bike at its core, it stayed the same. The engine stayed the same. And interestingly, the horsepower stayed almost exactly the same. The first generation, 144 horsepower, and the very last generation, around about 141 horsepower. The issue being, this bike was around for such a long time, 2001, 20 years or so, which is an incredible run for a bike with basically the exact same engine. Over that 20-year lifespan, Yamaha had 2 big hurdles they had to get over with regards to ever-increasing emissions regulations. So you need to make your pick as to what you want, because the engine's in essence exactly the same. In fact, the bike is very similar through that 20-year run. Do you want the Generation 1 with no electronics at all, not even any ABS, very few emissions regulations Yamaha had to jump and dance around? Or do you want a far more modern bike with far more electronics, more creature comforts, but no more horsepower and hoops they've had to jump through with regards to the emissions, so a more complicated bike, although more modern in every sense of the word? It's a bit of a toss-up here. A big sign about how well respected these bikes are is if you go onto, and bear in mind they're around for 20 years, but if you go to Auto Trader here, all I've done is type in Yamaha FJR1300, most expensive first. That's it, nothing else on my search. You can see that the end of the series 2020 bike, £15,495. Bear in mind, brand new, these were about £15,000 4, 5, 6 years ago. £15,000 in 2019. Right now, this one 5 years old for the exact same price. Keep scrolling down, £13,750 for a 5-year-old bike. This isn't some one-off. There's another 5-year-old bike here, 13.5 grand. Another 5-year-old bike, 12 grand. 10.5 grand, 10 grand. These are seriously highly regarded bikes. The fact that after 5 years, you're still looking at 10 to 15,000 pounds. Even 8-year-old bikes here are still hitting the 10,000 pound mark. These are huge amounts of money. So what can we find if I take a look at a Generation 1 bike of very possibly one of the finest mile-munching machines that there has ever been? Bear in mind how much money, in essence, the same bike just updated, how much these go for. What can I find from about 2001, 2002? Facebook Marketplace, because these are so old, I think this is where I'll find the best one. Tell you what, not even 2001, 2002. I'm going for a Generation 2 2008 model. This is a treat. Oh, this is a treat. Bear in mind how good these bikes are. Listed 24 days ago. Price reduced from £2,000 to £1,600. Insanely cheap considering how much bike you get for the money. Regularly serviced, final drive, full service, cleaned, oiled, refitted, head bearing, full replacement. Comes with panniers, upgraded shocks, full service for the forks, the seals, the oil, fitted new starter relay. This is a really, really well sorted bike. The bike has been used for touring by the previous owner, hence why the mileage is high. I, however, have used it for commuting. You'll be able to ride it away. It's a solid bike. The reason it's such good value, because it's been used for exactly what these bikes have been made for, touring all over the place, 80,000 miles on the clock. But surely it's nothing for a bike like that to be used for exactly what it's meant to be used for, and you can just tell the quality looking at these bikes or looking at the pics of this bike. Can you get a better mile muncher than this bike for £1,600? The original panniers, it's got everything. Fantastic. Bike of the week. Absolutely love it. I'll wrap it up there. Thank you so much everyone for watching. Have a brilliant week all. See you in the next one.